Time and a place. Thank you. I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube, joined by Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss Butch's favorite Western, The Wild Bunch, as we continue our Western movie series. So, when did you first see this one, buddy?
Uh, Late 90s. Amusingly enough, I first heard about it in the early 80s. Believe it or not, Stephen King mentions it in his book Dance Macabre about writing and about horror. And he says something about Sam Peckinpah blowing Ernest Borgnine into little chunks. And I was just like, wait, what? So I tried to see it. I'd seen bits and pieces, but always late. And then actually, I got my tax return in 98 or 99, went to Best Buy, and there it was. I'm like, okay. And saw it and just utterly fell in love with it. I'll tell you something. I don't think you know this. I used to not be a real big fan of Westerns.
Really?
I grew up thinking they were kind of dumb, kind of simple. And my dad, he always loved them. And, I would watch them sometimes with him. And just over time, and then the horror Western role-playing game I've mentioned, Deadlands, we started playing it. And just by the time I found the DVD at Best Buy, it was just like, oh my God.
I love that. Here's the thing. When I was a kid, I told you guys, I told you and our mutual friend Patrick McRae before, my mom got me into horror movies. She showed me my first horror movie. My grandfather, her father, I used to go to his house on the weekends. So one day, and this is what my grandfather would do. He would sit around and watch westerns during the day, and that's it. And if you bothered that man during that, listen,
God,
he God help you, because no one else would. Um, so one day, the Sons of Katie Elder was on, and he said, "Hey, we're gonna watch this." And it wasn't a question. It was just he's telling you we're gonna watch.
yes, yes.
So we're watching this, and it was like a John Wayne marathon of movies. So we watched that. So that's how I got started in the westerns, and really it grew on them. I first saw this actually on Turner Classic Movies, The Wild Bunch. So it was nice to see it uncut and commercial free. Where, because usually some movies at this time, the AMC, they don't so much do it anymore. AMC used to show a ton of westerns when I was growing up, but now they don't. But back in the day, Turner Classic Movies showed this movie, The Wild Bunch. So I'm glad I got to see this movie when I think I was 18, 19 when I saw this one. I didn't see it when I was a little kid, so I saw this one like near as an adult, and it was really good. There's movies just you should see uncut and commercial free, and this is one of them. Simply because I think, now, to be fair, I've never seen this on AMC, so I don't know how they would censor it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, right. Because, spoiler alert, there's nudity in this too. I love how this opens up, how like it goes from like gray, like sort of smoke gray, to color. Like it's really cool. It's not black and white, but it works for this film.
Yeah, when they go into San Rafael and it's building in, and you've got the dun, 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 and you'll starts introducing, and like it shows William Holden, and it freezes on him, and it says William Holden, and then it goes starting to sport down, and it freezes, and it's kind of a not really a sepia tone, but a desert or dirt tone. And I don't know if it's true, but the story I heard was William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, and the third person it mentions is Robert Ryan. Well, apparently Sam Peckinpah and Robert Ryan didn't get along. See, you have a picture of William Holden and you have a picture of Ernest Borgnine with both of their names, but apparently that's why Robert Ryan's is right next to a horse's ass. Because apparently Robert Ryan a horse's ass. I don't know if it's true, but I absolutely love it. And knowing Sam Peckinpah from what I do, I could see him totally doing that.
I could see it because I will say this though, Robert Ryan, the real antagonist in this movie is the goddamn kids. Um, what do you think of that?
At the beginning, anyway.
Yeah, I'm having a little fun. At the beginning, there's these kids and there's these scorpions and there's these fire ants, and the kids turn to scorpions ever, and it's sort of when I was watching this on Turner Classic Movies, they had said about how what Sam Peckinpah was doing was, in a weird way, this movie, in a weird way, is about fate, and I could somewhat see that with this, but I don't totally agree with that because this movie is about really about loyalty to me most of all.
Honor, felt friendship. Yeah.
It's Holden's character, Borgnine's character. There, I mean, I love Borgnine's character for the simple fact of Dutch is his name, I believe,
Dutch
and and I love when they rob the bank. We'll get into what's in the bag, but they're people. Some of their men die, and there are people who get killed on both sides, and the certain members of the Wild Bunch are wanting to bury the guy who just got shot, who had his eye blown out, and I love how Dutch goes, "Oh, I'd like to say a few words. Let's send him a hymn," and you could tell he's being sarcastic.
Yeah.
It
Then church social, followed by some hymns. I want to tell you. I want to tell you before we get any further. I absolutely, without a doubt, love this film. I'm somewhat known for things I don't like and hate more. There is not a thing about this film I don't love. The cinematography, the music, the direction, the actors, the script, the story, the dialogue. I can't, I don't have the words to tell you how much I love this film. It is one of my favorite films, probably in the top five for me of all time. It's my favorite Western, and as far as I'm concerned, it's the best Western. No pun intended. I just realized.
it's one of the better heist westerns too. It doesn't. I think that's something it doesn't get enough credit for too. That here's these group of outlaws that live by their own code. I've sort of talked about how they're loyal and love William Holden's line. Either I control this bunch or I end it
Yeah, right now.
right now. And it's like you Holden should. I don't know how many westerns Holden did. I know he did other things, but he should have did more after this because he really. It's crazy to say the star of the movie, stole the movie, but he does. I
He
mean,
does. And I don't know if they aged him up or what, but he just looks so weathered. And I mean, every shot, especially on the Blu-ray, uh, there's, I mean, you see all the lines. And apparently, William Holden, was big on, he liked to go to the beach and tan and whatnot. So I don't know if that aged him up, but he just looks like a guy that's been uh, out in the desert on the run, not living in town, farming or working at a store. And his presence is just so powerful. I don't think his presence is as powerful in any other film he makes. And I'm a pretty big William Holden fan. I mean, I'm not Bruce Campbell fan of him. Apparently, it's allegedly Bruce Campbell's favorite actor. But yes, everybody here does a great job, and he is just holy crap, amazing.
Did you see if they ever remade The Wild Bunch, Bruce Campbell playing Holden's character?
I would love it because so many people just see Bruce as kind of comedy slash horror. Um, I think Bruce could do anything. Patrick McRae, our mutual friend, he had an idea one time. He said if he was to cast a new Star Trek series, he would cast Bruce Campbell as the captain. And I'm like, oh my God, I would watch every episode of that.
Right. And by the way, Bruce Campbell has done a Western. It's called The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. It's really good.
Very
Uh,
good.
yeah. It. I will say this. Ernest Borgnine, in this movie, when I first watched it, showed me he's the one actor who didn't play the Joker who should have. I'm talking Dutch is sinister as hell. And I mean, he literally hates anyone who would betray this gang. Like he would kill that person before. I, I get the sense he would kill the person before even Holden's character would. That he would just no, I'll do it. Just he's really. I love how he's so unhinged easily.
Let me throw something at you, and I've had this theory for, well, I guess a couple of decades now. Dutch is in love with Pike, William Holden's character.
Yeah, I
But
think
he's just, I mean, he always supports him except for one important scene, but even then he still kind of supports him. And we see him dancing with a woman one time, but he lets somebody break in and take off. And at the scene at the brothel, they're all inside with women, and he's outside whittling. And in the way at the end when he's Pike, Pike, and he says Pike like 20 times.
yeah.
I'm not trying to put any stigma on it, but I always felt like that Dutch is in love with Pike, and due to the times, he couldn't do anything about it.
I'm going to support your theory. I've watched this movie 4 times only. And here's the thing. There's a scene. Now, for those who haven't seen The Wild Bunch, William Holden's character has a scar on his leg where he got shot by somebody, where he was in love with this woman who was married and her husband came in. So, and he never caught up with the guy and he gets injured that way. Now, the scar, he gets up on he goes to get up on his horse, and the holster of the horse, the whatever they call it, yeah, it breaks and he falls. Holden's character does, Pike does, and some of the men, at least 2 of them, laugh at him over it because there was an argument prior, and Dutch watches him get back up off the ground, get up on the horse, and as he's going away, the camera turns to Dutch and he's sort of looking at him. And it's sort of like a love feeling. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
that's just me and you. I don't know.
I've talked to a lot of people that have seen this film more than once, and maybe they don't all agree, but they at least go, yeah, I see your point. I posted it over on TV and movie tropes under the Your Mileage Might Vary on Wild Bunch, and someone responded with, I think that's pretty much, you pretty much have to accept that. I'm like, well, that's a little bit more than I would think, but
Right.
I mean, you look at El Dorado or Rio Bravo or however many films. I mean, you've got these, going to El Dorado, you've got John Wayne and Robert Mitchum. They're obviously good friends. They obviously care about each other. I mean, I've known people like, well, they're in love with each other. I'm like, I don't think they're in love with each other. It's just been through battle, life and death, and there's a bond there that kind of goes beyond just mere friendship. But I mean, if you want to say that, okay, I'm not going to argue that with you. But this to me goes a little bit beyond that friendship that, say, John Wayne and Robert Mitchum had in El Dorado.
I like how they shoot this. I love the rooftop. I love how Sam Peckinpah uses his camera along the rooftops and the ground. It's really a perfect. This opening is perfect. How they're going into town, like you said, they're playing the music. It's really well done, and I love how they have the cameras. And Robert Ryan, he's like, "You didn't tell them people. You should have told." I'm like, "It's a little late for that."
But I do agree with Decker, the railroad guy. He's like, how long could anybody keep their mouth shut in this hole? and he's got a point. I mean, of course, Robert Ryan has a point because there's like I said, there's a robbery going on. There's bounty hunters up on the roof. The bunch sees them, sees their guns because you have Strother Martin and L.Q. Jones who play through the film. We mentioned Strother Martin on Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And according to either Strother Martin or L.Q. Jones, they decided to play that those two were in love. And again, couldn't talk about it. But if you watch the film, you're like, oh my God, yeah, there's something going on with them. But the bunch sees the bounty hunters and they start a distraction, go out of where they're robbing with the temperance union as it goes by, and it's a slaughter. It's a slaughter, and I hate to say this, and I apologize ahead of time. It's a beautiful slaughter. It's not the most because that one happens at the end.
Yes.
It's just, one of the things I always disliked about westerns was the you got me, and maybe a slight ketchup packet on the hand, and you don't have to have Friday the 13th, somebody's half of their heads missing or something. Even the guy you're talking about that gets shot with a shotgun in the face, we never see how bad his face is. He's
Right.
shot from behind. You see some kind of red, and the implication is it's hamburger.
Yeah.
And he falls off his horse, and he's like, I can ride, and he's like, no, I can't ride. And apparently that's one of their rules. If you can't ride, he's like, I can't ride. Do it, Mr. Bishop. Do it. Bam! And he just shoots him right in the head, and they leave him. And that's what spawns the argument. Well, we should bury him and all that. But it's so beautiful. Have you ever been out to the southwest of America?
I have not.
I went in college. They had this thing called the Southwest Field Trip, and we went around the Four Corners area, mostly in Colorado, up towards Mesa Verde, and we did go down to Santa Fe. And the entire time I was out there, it was when Chris Isaak, if you remember him, his song "Wicked Game" had come out, and I had that on cassette. And it has a kind of, I don't say mariachi, but like a I kept thinking it was like a very Southwest sound. It just every time we were in some big area, that music flowed and just it has the same feel that this does. It's just like me and my wife keep talking about one day we're going to go out there and she's going to see some of that stuff, and it's just so beautiful. And I mean, I live in East Tennessee. We have the Smoky Mountains, and we have beauty here. Don't get me wrong, but when you live in your mountains all your life, the desert is exotic.
I like that. I think I'm gonna go to hell for this. Sam Peckinpah, the way he does blood in this movie, I feel he did it better than what Sergio Leone did it in his 4 films in his westerns.
Oh, I don't think you're going to hell for that. I think you're right. I mean, you might
Here's-
hurt your feelings, but
I'll be the prick on YouTube.
this is
No,
the first time we hurt somebody's feelings. They've not been paying attention.
That's true. I love the way he does blood in this movie. It's literally a character in itself in a weird way. The way the shootouts are done, they feel like actually consequential shootouts. Like there's a consequence to the gunplay, and the gunplay is righteously done too. The way the rooftops they're shooting back and forth. Peckinpah really took advantage of how he shot this film and how he did it, and he does it to perfection too. Even one of my favorite sequences prior to the bridge blowing up is the train when they're stealing that train and they literally unhatch it. It's like they're more stealth than freaking Metal Gear Solid will ever be. They are. These guys are just sneaking aboard this train. It's so cool. I love it. But for the towns, I know I'm jumping around, sorry. But for the town sequence, I love how the guy holds the shotgun and he's like, and Pike's like, you stay here. You wait here and hold that gun in.
Crazy
And,
Lee.
yeah, later on, the older guy is like, how my boy do for you? He's like, your boy? You didn't tell me he was related.
I think he was his grandson. He's like, oh yeah, and you see this quick look on William Hutton's face, like, oh crap, I left his kid there to die. He did great. I mean, it's not quite as silly as I just did, but that's almost the feeling to it.
You're sort of Holden's either I'm gonna get a pat on the back or a bullet. That's like what you're sort of like Holden's body language is beautiful in that scene because he's riding alongside him and their horses are perfectly aligned and he's looking at him like he did great. Oh, he did great for you. Oh, that's great. And I'm thinking, oh shit.
You are lying your rear end off, but what are you going to do?
I love when they say that it's Ryan's character who led him because the old man's going off on a tangent and he's like, "Oh, what a bunch." So when they pull out the washer, when they have the washers come out of the bag. So for the people who haven't seen this movie, when they rob the bank, that's not gold or silver, it's washers.
Yeah, they've set them up for the railroad has, and it's kind of funny because you see the two brothers, Lyle and Tector Gorch, played by Ben Johnson and Warren Oates. They're not the sharpest knives in the drawers. I think it's Ben Johnson that goes silver rings, and Ernest Borgnine goes silver rings your butt. Them's washers. And because I mean, if you think about it, though, it's pretty genius to if you're going to set up a trap, and that way you're not using you don't have time to really look in each bag and go, okay. So yeah, but yeah, Sykes's comments there. Oh, what a bunch! What a powerful! I mean, he's just telling them how stupid they are. The big grin to pass the time of day, and you thumb up your ass, and it's hilarious. And the two brothers are like, well, we don't think the new guy should get his full share, and he after they find out it's Washers, the new guy Angel, he's like, "Hey, gringo." He's Mexican. He's not Hispanic. He's literally Mexican because they crossed into Mexico later. He's like, "Hey, gringo, you can have my share." You know, being a real smart ass to him. And he goes to the brothers go to pull their guns. Well, Angel, who is the new guy, already has his out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the scenes that you were talking about because around the backside of the brothers is William Holden and Ernest Borgnine and oh, I'm gonna cheat. Hugh or not Hugh O'Brien. God, sorry.
That's okay.
No, Brian. That was in Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. They're behind them, the brothers with shotguns. Nothing. I think they both are two shotguns and a rifle. But anyway, and Borgnine's character's like, "Step easy, boys," and then he turns around and that's around. It's not the same time, but it's around the same time you talk about. I don't know when Holden goes. I don't know nothing, but either I lead this bunch or I end it right now. And the thing I do like though is after this very tense moment, the brothers are like, "Well, screw it," and they put their guns down and they pull out a bottle of whiskey and they pass it around. They start drinking, and they start laughing at each other and for being so stupid. And there's that great scene with Warren Oates talking about, well, you was out railing them horses, we was out with two Hondo whores. And it shouldn't be funny because it's so stupid, but it is funny, and the whole scene works. I think with lesser actors, it wouldn't have worked. I mean, everybody in this film is a good actor, at least at what they're doing.
This movie, it with its like not just with the scenes it shows, not just with the nudity and like the violence, with its language, it's very raw and in your face, but it's not offensive to me. You know what I mean? Like it's very just well acted and well done. they feel like a game. Hey,
Yeah,
they're fighting 1 minute and then they're laughing it off the next, and that's so they to me the Wild Bunch. Again, it's the perfect gang slash heist movie because they actually feel like a gang. Holden, Borgnine, they're not so big that they shouldn't be in this movie. You know what I mean? We've talked about how that guy's an actor, so they're sort of too big to be in a certain horror movie. Whereas in this, not the case. They fit their characters, and they're literally playing those characters to a T. That
yeah,
they are them. You know what I mean?
yeah. You're talking about how brutal it is. It's realistic. I mean, it's kind of something I was getting at with the John Wayne. Oh, you got me, partner. I mean, this is not that. This is not something that's going to be shown at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And if it is, it's going to hit you in the face. I mean, um, this, as silly as it may sound, this might almost be a good uh, dual film with Night of the Living Dead, because both of those films came out right about the night, came out a year or two earlier, and they were just groundbreaking. They were showing things you weren't supposed to show. They were going places you weren't supposed to go, and that's one of the reasons the late '60s and '70s is I really enjoy a lot of those films because it's I'm not trying to knock any other film that's come, but these films go further. And I used to always say, when I was first getting into westerns, and as much I enjoy a good John Wayne film, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but there's only about three of them that feel real.
Right.
Even though Alamo is pretty much is at least based on a true story.
It is.
Uh, Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, The Searchers, and The Shootist, to me, are the ones that feel very real. And allegedly, I heard that that John Wayne was offered the role of Pike, and he turned it down. He said, "I can't do this, but I'll be the first person in line to see it." I don't know if that's true, but I also heard that he said that was the picture that killed the Western, and it was because you couldn't do John Wayne's kind of, especially later in the '70s, kind of comedy with McClintock and
Yeah.
those kind of films.
I think when you watch the, here's what I'll say, he could have done it because he does the shootist, and I do think if he would have, I'll say this because my favorite actor, I think I've told you this, is Henry Fonda. Fonda was afraid to take risks too, and I think with the older sort of Western actors like a Fonda, like a Wayne, especially, they were afraid to sort of take risk. But when they did take risk with their careers, it sort of paid dividends. Like I'll
Yeah,
give I'll give two great examples. Obviously, we'll be talking about Once Upon a Time in the West down the road, but Fonda's with Once Upon a Time in the West, and later on Golden Pond. The old Fonda's been in a lot of films, and on Golden Pond is the only thing that won him a goddamn Oscar. And with Wayne, I know people say True Grit, and True Grit's a great movie, but The Shootist really is underappreciated for what it is. And it's not just Wayne's final film. It's really it shows you that Wayne had the range to be in those spaghetti westerns if he wanted to, and he just chose not to. And it sort of just makes you wish, like, if he wouldn't have been so stubborn, he would have did a good job.
yeah, I agree. I mean, there you can look at. I think those three films that I just mentioned. John Wayne is a very underappreciated actor, but by the same token, he got into the same trap, if you will, that a lot of the big name actors do.
Yeah.
You go pay, see John Wayne be John Wayne. I don't want Sean Connery is one of my favorite examples. He did the LXG film. I don't know if you've ever read the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen books, but Alan Quartermain's a dope addict and kind of submissive to Mina Harker. I remember somebody saying, "Yeah, God forbid Sean Connery have to act on." I don't want to see Sean Connery do that. Sean Connery may go home and his wife may browbeat him from morning till night, But when I pay money to see Sean Connery in a film, I want to see Sean Connery.
Yep.
Sure, he can act. Don't get me wrong, but there's certain, when you want crazy, you go get Jack Nicholson, or you used to go get Dennis Hopper, or you want a strong leading man, you go get John Wayne or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Kurt Russell or somebody like to because that's what they do. And if people like it and it makes money, Peter Cushing used to always say he'd love to do Hamlet and nothing but Shakespeare, but not many people want to see that. But they do want to see him play, Baron Frankenstein or Professor Van Helsing. I'm like, God, I'd love to watch you do Shakespeare, but I understand the point you're making.
And Peter Cushing was right too. Just think about it. Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee turned down the role of Dr. Sam Loomis.
But at least Sir Christopher Lee did tell John Carpenter that was the biggest mistake of his career.
Yes.
And well, it was, but at least it gave, Donald Pleasance got a few paychecks afterwards. So
I'll say this. If Peter Cushing hadn't been in Star Wars, he would have did that role. Probably. I think, you know what I mean? Because he was in Star Wars, I think that's why he never does Halloween. Now, I love the fact that they got Donald Pleasance. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but
don't worry, I'll bring you back because, like I said, we're talking about my favorite Western.
Right, the Wild Bunch. I love how when they go to steal the train, when they make the agreement with the army, they literally are going to go steal this train for money. And I love it. It's a great heist plot point. It's just a great plot point in this movie. And it's so well done. And I love how it's shot and done. They're sneaking around. They're so stealthy. And even the gunplay on the train is really well done. I love how it's moving and they're shooting. And I love William Holden's face when he sends the train backwards. He's smiling.
Got something for you, boys. Hold on.
Right. But because Ryan's character, they're sitting in the car, and once the train pulls away, he's like, "Let's go."
But it doesn't even say anything to the army that's there on the train. He's just kind of like, because he's looking at a bunch of kids. He even makes a line before that about raw recruits, and there's like one little kid looks like he's about 12 to me. Of course, I'm getting old. And he just kind of looks at me, he's like, come on. And they're getting their horses out and they go after him. And then finally the guy in charge, the sergeant, realizes something's going on.
Yeah.
The bunch and Holden and the bunch are already gone with the engine and the parts that have the weapons that they've been hired by the Mapache, the Mexican general. And the bounty hunters are going and he's like, wait, what's going on? It's like, dude, you had no clue. If it wasn't for the train coming back, the best thing you could have done is just stayed there asleep.
Really is too, and I love the fact that once they steal it, Holden as Pike is so good because they're gonna rig up an explosion to blow up this bridge that they cross. It's one of the most coolest explosions I've seen in a Western, where you have Ryan's men, they're on the bridge. And these guys who Ryan's character has, they're so mistake prone. They shoot one of the soldiers that are coming out. He's like, he gets pissed off about
it. You're the army.
Right? He's like, they're the army. And the bridge blows up and they fall into the water, which is really cool. And then later Ryan's like, if you ever do that again, I will ride off and watch you die. And you could tell Ryan is selling it beautifully.
Something I don't know if we mentioned Robert Ryan's character, Deke Thornton,
yep,
used to be in the bunch, and him and Holden Pike were celebrating a successful crime, and there's this great it's not a straight flashback. It shows both of them, and it shows the Cat Ryan capture of Deke Thornton from both of them's point of view. And another scene where Pike is just like he makes this line where he's like, "Being sure is my business," and right after that they come in and shoot Robert Ryan's character, and you can tell he's sitting there. He's in a all wrapped up, and they're down in Mexico, and they got a fire, and he's got a cigarette, and you can just see this look in his eye, like, yeah, being sure is my business. I'm sure it was. I mean, he doesn't say a thing. It's just a look. But I think every person can look at that scene and go, yeah, I understand, buddy.
You really get the sense that Ryan's character, Deke Thornton, would rather be with the Wild Bunch.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's really well done throughout the entire movie. That even at the rooftop, yeah, he has no problem shooting at them, but you also get the sense of there's something to even before they show one flashback, even before they say one word, Ryan. Even before, Pike sort of realizes who's shooting at him, you get the sense of, okay, there's something about Ryan's character that he knows these people.
Because he has Pike Bishop in his sights, and he pauses for a second, and then the camera goes down to Bishop, who's looking up, and he's like, "Oh crap, that's my former partner." And he then Thornton recomposes himself and turns and shoots somebody else. Well, then Pike has his gun out, and he was aiming at Deke Thornton. Well, he turns and shoots somebody else. Like you said, you can tell without saying anything. You learn there's something there. There's some kind of bond. And while these two are on the opposite side at the moment, they're not really ready to cut that bond.
No, they're not. I think that's so beautifully done by both actors, really, but by both Holden and Ryan. They really play off each other so well, even though the only real lines they have together is in the flashback.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. That's the beautiful part about this movie. They're not the most scenes they're in together that they're actually talking is the flashback. Now, they are in scenes together in this movie, but they're on opposite sides of one another. And again, it's just the importance of the storytelling of this movie too. And it's so well done by the director, the writers, the actors. It really is. I'm going to give you I give this movie a 10 straight up.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a fun watch.
Yeah.
And
not for everybody, because it is, pretty adult. It's probably arguably the first adult Western film.
Yep.
Not because you already had Gunsmoke, you already had The Rifleman, Paladin. There's several TV shows that Sam Peckinpah worked on.
Yeah.
So he knew what he was doing, and you could argue Ride the High Country or what is it, Turn of the Around the Bend that you talked about with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
There's others, but this is the one where it's like it's almost kind of like a little kid that's been a teenager, and then suddenly the kid announces without saying that he's an adult, and he does something, and you're like, oh my God, you're not a kid anymore. And that's what this movie is.
Yeah, I would agree. This movie is more, it's way more of it's your first adult Western, really. And it makes no apologies for being it. And that's the beautiful part about it too. What's your favorite scene in this movie?
Let's go.
Yeah, I do.
I think I read it on IMDb. I don't know if it was editing or what, but there was some studio exec there was watching either a rough cut or dailies, and says they get to the scene towards the end. Boy, we're kind of mixing it up here. And Angel has been caught stealing. The bunch agreed to it, but he keeps quiet and gets turned over to Mapache, the Mexican general, because he gave guns to his family, whom his village, whom Apache had already attacked. And They come back to the Mapache, and he lets them in because he's all happy. And there's a scene. Pike and the Gorch brothers are in the brothel that I mentioned earlier, and Dutch is outside. And he just, again, not saying anything. And you see Pike looking at the young lady that's with him, who's quite the young lady.
Yeah.
Young meaning young age. And then you hear the Gorch brothers arguing with the another lady next there, and you can tell it. He's just like, he's wrestled with this, and he's like, no, all my talk about standing with a man. There's that great line about when you stand with a man, you stand with him, and if you can't, you're like some kind of animal. And you can tell it's just been gnawing at him. And he lays down some money, and he walks over to where the Gorch brothers are, and he just goes, let's go. And the Gorch brothers kind of look at each other, and they look at him, and then go, Warno's best line in the whole film for him, why not?
Yep.
Supposedly this studio exec was like, no, you got to have this big speech about, friendship and loyalty and why he's in. And Sam Peckinpah allegedly said, if I have to do that, they've missed the point of the whole damn film. And that's what the biggest thing about it is these guys, they have this loyalty, this bond, this gang like you're talking about, and it is like a family. It's actually probably more than a family because, I think everybody knows someone in their family that maybe the mom and the kid doesn't get along, or the cousin, or the aunt and the uncle. There's a few in my family, but you can't. And then the guys come out, and there's Dutch whittling and doesn't even say anything. And Dutch just looks at him, and he smiles and kind of laughs a little bit. And the stick he's been whittling, puts it down. They go over, they get their guns, and they have, probably, in my opinion, the most famous power walk. They're just walking through. And from Let's Go to the rest of the film, that is my favorite. I know it's not one scene, but that's my favorite scene.
I'll say this. Prior to, because there are power walks in a lot of Westerns, this is the one. Like, this is the best one. Because I would put this up against Tombstone. I would put this up against any movie. And this literally, because of the whole film, we've been talking about, this gang is like a family. And they have presented that throughout this entire movie, even with Robert Ryan's character. That's why there's the hesitancy, and they're not ready to cut the ties. Here, they're walking, and they know, they've talked about this before. They know they're not walking out of this, but right. It's not about walking away. It's about standing up for what you've believed in.
I'm glad you said that, because there's a very important moment. They come up to where Mapache is, and he's surrounded, and they're all kind of drunk and hungover, and he's like, what do you want? And Hogan's like, we want Angel. And Mapache's like, okay, I'll get him for you. And they pick him up, and they've been dragging him around behind a car and beating him up, and he cuts the rope that has his hands, and he's about to give him to him, and then he just reaches up and cuts his throat and drops him. And there's this musical cue, and Pike pulls out his gun, and I can't remember if he's got a shotgun, and he just gives it to Mapache right in the chest. And they're literally in the den. I mean, there's like 100 soldiers around them. I mean, women. There's these two German agent provocateurs, let's call them.
Yeah.
And the bunch has their guns, and everyone else is awed. They're like, it's one of the very smart. I don't want to be the first one to go. And Dutch looks at Pike and kind of laughs like, hey, we're going to get away with this. And Pike, he thinks that in my mind, he thinks that, and he goes, no, this is where it ends. And he looks at the German guy who's in a uniform, and I've always felt like that German officer was just the symbol of everything he didn't like, the modernization. And he just looks at him, and he starts shooting, and then starts the biggest shootout I don't think that's ever been. I know it's never been topped. I don't even think it's been equaled in all time.
Right.
And burned into the brain of John Woo. And this one of the reasons I love John Woo is this film, because it's there's a lot of slow mo, there's a lot of squibs, I mean, and it's not to say everything is that slow. There's some
Right.
normal speed stuff and everything, but yeah, they could have got they in my mind they could have left,
Yep.
but Pike knew anyway. It would just be more of the same.
Yep.
So he's like, no, we're going to end it. We're going to do something. We're going to stand. We're going to make, they killed our friend. We're going to kill every one of these sons of bitches we can.
Yep. And it's so the build up to it, like you said, the conversation, the walk, the power walk, and then the shootout. It's so well done, and I love how, like you said, like Dutch when Pike gets shot, Dutch is screaming Pike, Pike, and it's sort of, to me, when I watch this movie, it's not a sad ending. It's just sort of you knew this group was always going to die together, no
Yeah.
matter what. Like no matter what, like they were going, like whether it be here or somewhere else, they were going to all die together. They weren't going to die separate from one another. None of them.
Eh, I think they might, and here's why.
Good,
Is
good.
Pike knew that if they didn't end it here,
Right.
I think they would eventually start dying off one by one. Sykes, who's already old man Sykes, he's already gone at the moment. We think he's dead, but he's not.
Right.
Um, Probably one of the Gorch brothers would be killed, and then right after that another one, and of course Angel's been killed, and he's like, in my mind, it's more no. We're they don't really call themselves the Wild Bunch, but it's almost kind of like we're the Wild Bunch and we're going down together.
Right. Right.
But that's my opinion.
No, no. I
He did
like
it to avoid that dying off by attrition.
if they would have made it. I will say this: Pike would have went away to go find the guy who shot him in the leg.
Uh, there is, I keep mentioning, and I'm sorry for anybody that's not interested. I keep mentioning Deadlands, the horror western role playing game. Um, One of the things I brought into it was there, and I used to know the name of the town that's supposed to take place. I mean, there's over 100 people killed there, including the bunch. Well, in Deadlands, if you do something bad enough, or depending on the type of person you are, sometimes you can come back from the dead. You get this thing called a Manitou in with you, and you and the demon fight for control, even though you're dead. You're You're not a Ramiro zombie, but
Right.
you are a reanimated corpse. And because of what happened there in one of my Deadlands, that campaigns, that area is renowned for people coming back. Like they're called Harrow, and I was wanting to lead up to the one. I guess all of them actually, the bunch being these undead Harrowed and being the ultimate villains, but they're kind of not, because in my I was trying to keep them similar to what they are in this, but just because of all the death and destruction that happened there that day, it really opened up a portal to the next world in the game. And sorry, it's completely tangent, but every time I see that, I think of that. It's just so many people died. So many bad things happened here today.
My favorite scene I've talked about is the train sequence. I just love the way it's done. I also like how they use water in this movie. They cross water and then the bridge, obviously. I do think one of the most underrated scenes, like you said, is the one guy who we think gets killed. We're sort of like, oh wait, is he dead? Because we don't see him for a while after he's shot, and it's like he could be dead. But I do love the fact that him and Ryan's character, they just look at each other and then they start talking, then they ride off together. It's one of the best it's one of the best Western endings ever.
Yeah, yeah, it very much is. You find out that Robert Ryan's character, Deke Thornton, had been leaving apparently notes or something because he said, I let them to you like I said I would. So him and Sykes had been in, I guess drop boxes might be the term, but they knew what they were doing. These guys have been doing it so long, they didn't really even have to talk. After the bunch is killed, the bounty hunters show up with Deke Thornton, and they're like, this is better than a hog killing, and they're grabbing guns and everything, and they pull the bunch out over the horse, put them over the horses to take them back to get their reward money. And there's that great scene with Robert Ryan where he comes up and he finds Pike's body, and there's a 6-shooter because Pike has been carrying a M1911.
Yeah.
Those of you that don't know, that's the more kind of square gun, rectangle gun, and Deke looks at the 6-shooter and takes it as opposed to the more advanced and better gun. But it clinging to that notion of the past of this all meant something at one time, very similar to Red Dead Redemption 2 with Dutch and the gang. This meant something. We're not just a bunch of criminals, and like, yeah, you are, but yes, you do mean something to each other.
Right.
Then that scene happens with Sykes and Thornton, and Sykes looks at him and he's like, he's got some people with him from Angel's Village. So one of them's the old man that Pike talks to,
Yeah.
and he's like, me and the boys got some business to take care of. You want to come with us? And it's the last sentence in the film. He says, it's not like it was, but it'll do.
Yeah.
And he starts smiling and he gets up because he went and just sat outside, sends the bounty hunters off. They get killed by Sykes and the boys, as he calls them. Sykes comes back, and I presume they went and buried the bunch, and then they go off to do whatever it is they're going to do. I presume something in the Mexican Civil War that was going on.
Yeah.
Again, it's kind of this theme of family and these people drawn together in this certain way of life.
Yeah. I like how in the one army, there's this little kid who's like saluting it.
Yeah, when they're fighting, I can't think of his name now. They're fighting the other Mexican army, and this little kid, he's like 5, 6, 7, and he's standing there next to the telegraph operator. The telegraph guy hands him a telegraph. He runs to the general, and he's like, and the general been ranting and carrying on. Then he sees this kid, and you see this change come over him. And here's this kid standing with that telegram, and he salutes him back and takes the telegram, and he's telling him that the bunch has successfully stolen that train with the weapons, and you get the impression he would still stand there and fight, but then the other army is getting closer and closer because Apache's army has run out of ammo and weapons, because there's somebody even says, well, if we'd had the new guns and ammo, this wouldn't have happened. And it's like he's going to stand there and fight, but he sees that kid, and he's like, he says something which I presume is tell everybody to retreat, because a lot of this film is in Spanish.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I learned a lot of Spanish from this film because I used to have a boss that spoke Spanish, and I have a wife that speaks Spanish. So I'll be like, what'd he say? But they retreat, and it's like he retreats simply because of that kid, and he doesn't want the kid to get hurt. And the kid is actually the one that shoots Pike.
Yep. Yeah. The kid, like I said, the kids are the antagonists in this movie. And that's why. No, I'll say this, that it's really, again, we talk about family. The kid, to the kid, the army is his family. It's this whole movie has been building to family with the gang, with the one member of Pike's army where he wants to take a thing of the guns. He wants his family avenged, and he wants this whole movie, I agree with Peckinpah. If I have to put that in, they haven't been paying attention. And this movie is not hard to get. It's very simple.
No.
It's very simple, and it's very straight. Really, it's as straightforward as it gets. And I think that's why I like about it most too. It's every message it's trying to relay. It's not throwing it in your face, but it's letting you know, hey, there's something here between this character, and these characters, and it's really well done.
I would, you know, for some reason at my job, some of my younger coworkers, specifically the male ones, are like, you know, they'll ask my opinion about things. I'm like, why in God's name are you asking me? I don't know shit. But one of them asked me. He said, you know, if you could tell a younger man what to be a man is, what would you say? And I'm like, God, you know, that's a big question. And when I was watching this most recent time, I was just like, watch this film until you understand why everything happens the way it does.
Yes.
You don't go around killing whores and soldiers and robbing. It's not that, but the loyalty and the you know, family, the these things, and when you give your word, you try to keep it, and if you can't keep it for some reason, you try to make up for that. I mean, there's a lot of things here that you shouldn't emulate.
Right.
It's probably why it's a good thing I didn't say watch this film, but watch the message it's trying to tell you, that Sam Peckinpah wants to tell you, and take from that. You know, Patrick McRae and I have been friends for, gosh, 20 years now. And I don't know if he's ever told you, Patrick and I had a falling out back in 2007 for about 3 or 4 years. Long story, won't get into it. But anyway, and I missed my friend. And it's all my fault. Let me just go ahead and say that. And we used to always say we were going to have a wake for Charlton Heston when he passed away. Well, when Charlton Heston passed away, I put a blog up. Well, I didn't know it, but Patrick was reading my blogs. And he sent me an email, and we got in touch, and we talked, and, you know, I still have some problems with it because, like I said, it's all my fault. It still bothers me that I turned on a friend. But I have my brother back. And Patrick, if you don't know, he performed mine and my wife's wedding ceremony.
Cool.
And that day, I said, I know, you know, your name is McRae and my name is Rosenbaum, but as far as I'm concerned, you're family. And, you know, he calls me, he emails me, he texts me, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do that? I do my best to do it. Just, you know, I had 2 friends pass away in the last couple of years. One friend since high school of over 30, and another one of over 20 years. You know, I don't want to say I don't have a lot of friends, but I don't have that many older friends like that. So, you know, that's that loyalty. That's kind of what that is. And you know, if you can watch this film and catch that message of loyalty and stand, you know, doing the right thing and trying to do what you're supposed to, and not rob trains and not shoot people for no reason, then as far as I'm concerned, and I would like to think Sam Peckinpah would be like, yeah, you got it. You got the film.
I think when you watch, for those who have never seen this film, when you get to the end and Pike says, let's go, you get why. Like, you automatically get why he's saying that. And again, it's not a hard movie to get. It's really well done and a well told story. Now, the only reason you should be robbing trains and killing people is if you're playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
Or Deadlands.
Or Dead. That's it.
Yeah. This is, you know, there's not anything in Red Dead that I would say, oh, well, Pike is Arthur and you know, nothing like that. But Red Dead Redemption is almost kind of like the Wild Bunch video game, or at least as close as I ever want to see. Yeah, it's it's not a hard film to get. However, it does. It can't. I remember the first time I saw it, and it just really struck with me. You know, honor, loyalty, these words we talk about, and I felt like at the time, you know, various things in society, and I'm not going to blame. You know, I'm not blaming anyone or anything. I felt like it kind of pushed me away from that, and this film just kind of like, no, come back. And maybe someone watching it for the first time that hadn't ever been exposed to this type of stuff, it may be not that it's difficult, but it's just like it's so pure,
Yeah.
and it can take a little bit to and get that in. But every time I watch this film, it's like one, it's like showing up with an old friend and hanging out, but someone, it's also like being with a pretty girl because it's just like this film is so beautiful visually and audioly and everythingly, and I mean, seriously, I could probably watch this film every week.
It really is a great film to go watch. If you guys have not checked out The Wild Bunch, starring William Holden and Ernest Borgnine, who's great actor, by the way, both of them are, go check out The Wild Bunch. Butch, is there anything you want to add before we go, man?
If you've not watched this film, why not?
That's it. That's exactly right.
Never heard of it, you have now. Seriously, I love this film. I cannot straight this up. You know, I can understand maybe, and I don't, and I apologize for sounding sexist here. I understand a woman maybe, maybe not being as into it as we are, because really women are just side trapping. There's no real women characters of any importance.
Right.
You know, I don't even think they give them names.
No. No.
Angel's former girlfriend, but that's about it. This I wouldn't want this to be your first Western,
Right.
because I don't think anything will ever match it. But if it is, God bless you, and I do yourself a favor, watch it. It is a little long.
It is.
It's like, you know, it has some seriously graphic effects. It's not for kids.
No.
Um, it's for men and people wanting to understand men. It is an utterly fantastic film, and I cannot go on. I cannot tell you how much I love this film and how much it means to me. I just,
I think this movie really gets across too is how important a friendship is to you. That's another thing this movie gets across as well too, and I think it does a really really great job. I'll tell you what, guys, I will put a link, an Amazon link, to where you can get the Blu-ray on Amazon, The Wild Bunch. If you want to go pick up this movie, go pick it up for sure. Next week, next week, I'm going to make Butch Rosenbalm pull double duty because he's more notorious than Doc Holliday. As we're,
I was telling my wife that, you know, you said you wanted to do Tombstone and Wyatt Earp, and I own both. I've seen both. I like both. You know my love for Kurt Russell. I'm like, well, I don't have to watch Tombstone again. I know that movie quite well. I can go. I can tell you right now what my favorite scene is. Wyatt Earp, however, like I said, I just started getting into westerns in the '90s, in my 20s and early 30s. I had no idea. I mean, I knew who Wyatt Earp was. He was a famous guy, the fight gunfighter, okay, corral. But Tombstone starts at the end of his career.
yeah.
So I wanted to know more about him. So I really enjoyed Wyatt Earp, the Kevin Costner version, because it told you more of the whole story.
Yeah, I won't get into the historical stuff now because we're going to cover both movies next week. I'm going to check with Butch and what his schedule's like, and we'll be back. But it's always a pleasure to have you on, man. It's really cool. I love talking westerns with you and horror movies, but this is so cool. I'm thinking because when I said, "Hey, man, I want to do a western movie series with you," you're like, "I'm all for it." I'm like, "Great." So this is really cool because I'm a sucker for westerns. I'm there. I've seen both versions of 310 to Yuma.
I have to.
They're great. But next week we're gonna cover Tombstone, and Wyatt Earp. And yes, one of these movies is a little more historically accurate than the other. We'll let you know which one. Uh, but
Once
for the
we
most,
figure it out.
yeah, for the most infamous man in the West, Butch Rosenbaum. I'm Jules Saints Rosenbaum. Butch, man, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Anytime I can talk about this, you just
Yep. Yeah, the fact that we're covering two movies, I'm like, I gotta really, I gotta. This isn't really work, but I gotta put Butch to work.
yeah. By the way, my wife wants to tell you how much she loves watching westerns, and I hope you catch the sarcasm there.
To the lovely Mrs. Rosenbaum, I want to tell you how sorry I am because I hate having my ass handed to me by a woman.
And
I
she would.
I would be in the fetal position for hours and hours and hours, and then I would crawl to the hospital afterwards. But no, a huge shout out to Butch's wife. But for Butch Rosenbaum, thanks, man.
Thanks again. Take care, guys.
You too. Have a good night.
You too.